This week's episode of Nightmare on Film Street is brought to you by the horror short film Vody from Little Baker Films. From the muck and the mire of the swamps of 1980s Hollywood rises a new kind of cartoon pal. Celebrated artist Al Yacco returns to his family's abandoned storybook home in Los Angeles to claim what his father and grandfather could never achieve: eternal fame. But Al gets more than he bargained for when he discovers an old drawing in the attic that takes on a life of its own. Vody. Can his trusty animated confidant Bugsy pull Al out of the sinking bog that Vody has sunk him into? Or will Al sell his soul for the chance at seeing his name on the big screen? Vody is Dario Argento meets Walt Disney by Little Baker Films. Now, if I could just put a pause in this ad for a half a second, I'm real sorry to do this, but Dario Argento meets Walt Disney is the mashup I didn't know I needed, and I want it put directly into my veins. Vody is an indie horror short film about a cartoonist who returns to his family home in Hollywood to find strange visions and family curses. It's one of a whole slew of projects from Little Baker Films, and you can follow their progress online at littlebakerfilms.com or on Twitter and Instagram at littlebakerfilms. That's LILBAKER Films.
You're listening to Nightmare on Film Street. The current time is 6:66. Traffic is clear ahead from here to the afterlife, but it's hell outside. For the next hour, you're on Nightmare Time. So, let's give a grave welcome to our hosts, John and Kim.
Hello again, fiends, and welcome to Nightmare on Film Street, the horror movie podcast for the casually obsessed. I'm John, and I'll be joined by Kim very shortly. We are here for another Nightmare Alley episode, the spooky Side Street podcast, and the regular Nightmare on Film Street feed. We are talking with four of the directors of the new found footage horror anthology, VHS 94. We're talking with Jennifer Reeder, Chloe Okuno, Simon Barrett, and Ryan Prows. We did record this over Zoom ahead of the world premiere of VHS 94 at Fantastic Fest. The Fantastic Fest PR team, the people handling the interview, had them set up in the karaoke rooms. If you've never been to the Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, Texas, they have a bar attached to the actual movie theater, and above that bar is a series of karaoke rooms, which is usually where the interviews are conducted. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi connection was not incredible, and the acoustics of those rooms are not built for podcasting, so apologies up front for that. I think the technical issues are absolutely hysterical, though, because it really does feel in line with the found footage discussion that we're having throughout. There are a few moments where we have some delays. At some point, Jennifer Reeder and Chloe Okuno just disappear out of the Zoom chat completely, but we all roll with it. And, overall, this is a really fun interview. And I've actually kept a lot of those technical problems in because they made me laugh a lot. So I hope you enjoy them as well. VHS 94 is the fourth movie in the VHS franchise. It's a series of anthology films. It's actually available on Shudder right now, so you can check it out. There are 5 segments, 6 if you want to get real technical about it, but one of them's kind of a secret, and it gets tagged on to the end of Chloe's, which is great. There's no need to worry if you haven't actually seen the anthology film yet. There are no spoilers. There's a little bit of discussion about just, found footage in general, the steps that each of the filmmakers took to sort of recreate the shot on video aesthetic from 1994, and about how 1994 is kind of this pivotal year for amateur film. Specifically in news broadcasts. It's a big thing that we talk about with Jennifer Reeder regarding her segment, which is actually a wraparound that follows a SWAT team. But, of course, if your watch list is as long as mine is, especially now in October, oh boy, are there a lot of horror movies to watch out there and just not nearly enough time. Don't worry. There's nothing that we talk about in here that's going to ruin the movie for you. And really, I would highly recommend that you check it out before Halloween. I think anthology films are perfect for your Halloween horror watch list. They're just bite-sized little pieces of weird shit, and VHS 94 is 100% that. Kim and I have both been big fans of this franchise since it first started, and we're super happy that we've got another installment to talk about here today. So I'm going to throw it off to the trailer, and we're going to jump right into our interview with filmmakers Jennifer Reeder, Chloe Okuno, Simon Barrett, and Ryan Prows.
Police, search warrant!
Police, search warrant!
Do not touch anything.
Could be no one left alive in here.
Do I just press the button?
Press the red button.
Just press it.
I assume they're paying extra for this.
Yes.
This is a remarkable story.
Hello? Hello?
Holly?
Technology, the Veggie Masher turns your vegetables into a tasty, mouth-watering paste.
Hello.
Hey there.
Hello. Hi.
Sorry, I just dropped my microphone like as soon as we got in.
Oh, are you guys in the karaoke rooms? Is that where they have you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's chilly.
Perfect acoustics.
Yeah. Congratulations on the world premiere tonight. I'm sure you guys are excited about that.
Buzzing. I'm very excited. I haven't. This is my first time at Fantastic Fest, and this is how you do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's such a fun vibe, and everybody's gonna dig VHS. It's a great crowd for this movie.
Oh, for sure. They better. We've been like pumping the crowd, getting them ready.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I walk around people and I kind of say like, "Hey, I've heard VHS 94 is really good." And, who said that? Wow. I want to get a ticket. Wow.
Soothsayers.
And then and so I think we're gonna sell. I think we're gonna have a couple. We might fill half the theater.
Has anybody had a chance to have any good barbecue while they're in Texas?
Not yet.
I got queso. We immediately hit the queso joint. I got like 2 tall boys of queso, like threw them down in the in the alley back behind the theater, and now I'm like ready to rip, just greasy.
I don't think I've eaten anything but like draft house food since I got here. My body is dying.
That's funny. So we were gonna ask you to just do a quick little roundtable, just sort of say your name, introduce your segment, like a little TLDR, what it's about for everybody listening to this later on.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Hey, I'm Jennifer Reeder. I wrote and directed the segment. It's called The Wraparound, and it is without spoiling anything, essentially about a SWAT team that invades what they think is a drug super lab, but they encounter something else super instead.
I'm Chloe Okuno. My segment is called Storm Drain, and it's about a reporter who with her cameraman is going to investigate a sort of local legends called the Rat Man. And she goes in thinking it's just a really stupid puff piece, but obviously it turns out to be a little more serious than that.
My segment follows Chloe's in the film. I'm Simon Barrett, and I directed a segment called The Empty Wake, which is about a young funeral home employee who's given the job of officiating an overnight memorial service, as well as filming it for the family of the deceased for the memorial video. And it's just what unfolds over the course of that evening.
and I'm Ryan Prows, and I did a segment called Terror, and it's about a militia who get their hands on a supernatural entity that they plan to use as a weapon to fell the mighty U.S. federal government.
Awesome. Thanks so much. That's a great way to just put the face to or the voice to the segment.
Yes.
Sure.
So we wanted to ask you, initially, like, about the development process for your stories. Like, were these, like, individually, like, were these scripts that you had, in your drawer, you were just waiting for somebody to ask you to shoot it, or was this something that you wrote specifically for VHS 94?
Oh, well, so I actually sort of inherited part of the storyline. So David Bruckner was supposed to direct the wraparound, then he got called away to do Hellraiser. So I was actually brought on pretty late in the game, so to say. And so I inherited a concept that was perhaps begun both by Simon and David. And then so I didn't want to change it too drastically, because I knew that Chloe's segment had already been shot, Ryan's segment had already been shot. I think Simon's segment was in production when that happened. So there wasn't a lot of room to just like reinvent the entire wraparound. But I still feel like I was able to come in and inject myself into that story.
Cool.
Yeah, for me, the story idea was like one of those, like, I assume this is probably the same way for Ryan and Chloe. It was like, when I was invited to participate in the project, you start kind of spinning your wheels about like what kind of horror story, you've always wanted to tell that maybe works better in a shorter found footage format than in a feature format. And, and in particular, I'd always wanted to tell, kind of a corpse horror story. I was influenced by a lot of other films, but wanted to do it in a different style. So for me, it was like trying to think of like, what's a good VHS segment. Yeah.
Corpse horror sounds like a very specific but very odd and cool subgenre. How about you, Chloe?
But you know what I mean, right? It's not zombie horror. Yeah. But I think we're out of sync.
Oh, I think we have a little bit of a delay.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Like corpse horror, it's very specific, but always cool.
Got it. And then you asked Chloe a question, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Aren't the two of you like 5 feet apart, or the four of you 5 feet apart from each other?
They're in the next room.
They're in the next room, but for legal reasons, we have to do it this way.
For me, I came in and pitched, I think, a couple ideas to David Bruckner and to the other producers. And it was the sort of storm drain idea, that aspect of it, going into a storm drain, finding like a creature, was something that I've been playing around with a little bit as a feature idea, but I really like the idea of doing it in the sort of found footage format. So yeah, that's how it happened.
How weird were those other stories you pitched? Because like I gotta say, like Storm Drain is it's so much fun, but it goes to such places.
It does, yeah. The other one, I think the other one I pitched was like, I had just come back from a bachelorette party, which was hilarious because like, I don't know why I'm telling this story, but like there was like these like male strippers that kind of seemed to like terrorize all of us, not in like a really bad way, just in the way that we're like, oh my God, like a naked man in our living room, what's happening?
And then the horror maker in yourself, you're just like, I'm gonna make a movie of this.
Yeah, contingency cut. They can hear them. We just can't hear them.
Oh, we can't hear though. I think they froze for us as well.
It looks like they've frozen, unfortunately. So, with that in mind, Ryan, tell us a little bit about where your short came from, your segment.
So it's just going great. We couldn't hear that.
Oh no!
Can you ask it again?
This
is going good. This is going good. This is the way I'd want it to be. I think.
This is great. This is the unofficial added segment.
It looks like one.
Yeah, completely frozen.
That's sucks.
Yeah. Well.
And they're gone. Okay.
Oh no.
Chloe and Jennifer, come over here. Why are we separated? We're lost. We're lost in the draft house.
It doesn't make sense.
We've unofficially walked into VHS 2024, I assume.
It just got taken out. I've seen this movie before.
So yeah, Ryan, where did the idea for your segment come from?
Yeah, definitely just sort of, trying to think what scares the hell out of me. And it happens to be militia violence, which is on the rise in 2021, 2020, and also 94 as well. So it felt apt for today and yesteryear of horrific terror events. That mixed with, such a fun, the VHS series franchise is a fave of mine. And it was so fun to kind of think on okay, what was going to be my approach to found footage in general, but then also, my way into it was more of those 90s white power documentaries that were on HBO, every other weekend you just watch nonstop, or about skinheads or whatever. So I thought that was a kind of a fun way to twist the found footage approach a little bit.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned thinking about 1994 and specifically, because we were curious if what you guys were doing to sort of establish it as a segment from 1994, either visually or in the story. I've got your answer a little bit, but visually, what were you pulling from to try and to make it look like it's 20, 30 years old?
Well, I think visually was kind of the visual opportunities that it afforded us was, I think, kind of the original inspiration for setting it in 1994, which was really actually David Bruckner's idea, I should say. He kind of creatively put this together, and the 1994 of it all was his notion, because it would kind of force us to use such antiquated analog technologies. And I think if Jennifer and Chloe were still in this interview, talking about how great it is to work with me, what I think they'd be saying is that Jennifer in particular really was looking at kind of what was going on in 1994, videos that were permeating the culture, and she was very she was really trying to go for a very, very specific aesthetic, relating to those videos. For me, I was more just this is terrific. I get to really make this look like actual VHS, which has such a distorted look and kind of creates an additional layer of just creepiness and verisimilitude for the story I was telling. The downside is you lose a lot of detail. So my main, the lead actor in my film, the lead actress, Kyle Legend, I worry people kind of actually can't see her performance sometimes. We've got the whole group here.
Perfect.
Everyone's slide on. Yeah. No,
Yay!
Hello again.
Hello again.
Hi. Brought the conversation to a crashing halt.
No. I was just saying that I felt if you two were here, you'd be saying kind of how inspiring it was to work with me and kind of But anyway, whatever. You can answer the questions.
A living legend in your presence.
Yeah, Simon Barrett. I just Chloe and Jennifer. They probably would have said something like that. But anyway, they're here now.
Yeah, so we were just kind of talking on the actual kind of visual tech of 94 and how you embodied that in each of your segments. If you two have anything you want to add in terms of how you were going for, the 90s VHS aesthetic visually.
Yeah, I don't know how much they talked about the actual technical side of it.
Not at all.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, I was really into that when I heard that they were doing VHS 1994. That was, the main thing that attracted me to it was it's VHS, and I love the series, and I love all the filmmakers who've been involved in it. But I really liked the idea of going back and doing a 90s period piece. So yeah, with ours, funnily enough, a lot of it, because it just sort of takes place in this storm drain, it isn't in some ways very, very specific except for wardrobe. But yeah, we did a lot of camera tests for how to get the right look of it. We shot digitally, ended up doing a few different tape transfers to get the sort of authentic VHS look, which I think is incredible. And my DP, Jared Rabb, did an amazing job.
I will say your news anchor hairstyling was very on point 90s.
That's very true, actually. Yeah, that the sort of bob, the 90s shoulder length
blown
bob.
out. Yeah, it was great.
And
yes.
And when you say tape transfers, are you saying that you're taking what you shot digitally and transferring it to a VHS tape?
Yeah.
That's
So a
awesome.
few different
Yeah. Everyone had a different process. Each filmmaker had a different individual process to give them like a different look, so it wouldn't be too exhausting. But everyone did something crazy. While you were talking, I just realized I wish I could set every horror movie in 1994 because characters don't have cell phones.
Yes.
That alone, like 9 out of 10 horror ideas I have, cell phones just like don't get me past the first scene. I'm like, oh yeah.
The cell phone is the slasher, the killer in the room.
Problem solved. And so Jennifer, how about yours with your segment? Simon was actually telling us that you were really paying attention to like 1994 culture in what you were looking to do.
Yeah. So the same thing we shot, with like an Arri Alexa, which is a really nice digital camera, and then we ran it through both Andrew Appel, who's the DP, who actually also shot Simon's section. We both really loved the tape transfer of Betamax, which like has a lot of artifacting in it, and then we added even a little bit more artifacting, so it felt like especially kind of grimy and glitchy and crunchy. But because I knew that my section in terms of the kind of production design would feature a lot of monitors, then I was thinking a lot about 1994 and how many events we remember from 1994 that are preserved on video. So for instance, like OJ's Bronco chase, the Nancy Kerrigan knee whacking incident, Kurt Cobain died. There was the David Koresh, Waco fire. I mean, there was a lot of events that we knew about through amateur video. And so without, infringing on copyright, there's little bits of some of that footage in my section.
Oh, wow.
That's so true, too, because growing up in the 90s as a kid, the home video recorder was such new home tech that I remember, there was a period where my dad was taking videos of, every single Christmas, birthday, Thanksgiving. Nothing would happen, but we would record it.
Yeah, and I think that now we're very used to watching. I mean, there's so many news events that we know about based on amateur, video. I mean, obviously now it's all cell phone, but not to get too deep, but kind of like prior to the Rodney Graham, beating, or Rodney King beating, there was analog home video footage did not exist, on broadcast news, so with that Rodney King incident. And then after that, we really, that kind of analog video signal, as like news footage, became much more prominent. And I think that 1994 is a year where we understand a lot of the most kind of pressing events of that year, just based on, home video, amateur analog video.
Damn, that's a really good point. Suddenly this movie seems like way more believable too, because we were all paying way too much attention to O.J. Simpson or Waco, Texas. We didn't even know about the fucking thing that happened in the funeral home that no one wants you to hear about. So we were actually we're really big fans of found footage as well, and we just think it's a completely different medium for storytelling than any other subgenre. And we were maybe hoping we could get you to talk a little bit about crafting a story with that sort of first-person perspective and what it's like to make scares out of that.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm kind of the found footage expert at the table, having done the first 2 VHS movies and also Blair Witch, which is certainly more than I ever fucking intended to.
The Godfather of found footage? Can we call you that?
In a way, I think you could say that I'm the Godfather of found footage. Yes. So yes, and people do. And so, but you know what? Obviously, I've spent way too much time thinking about it. But the general challenge of it is, it kind of takes a lot of the fun out of directing, because you're making your choices. Usually in horror movie language, the tools that you use to scare people are actually taken away from you when you're making found footage. You can't use score, you can't use edits, you can't use stingers and sound design. And in theory, the camera should only be looking at what it's looking at if a character legitimate, plausible, practical reason for aiming it that way. Obviously, you get a lot of leeway with those things past a certain point, but it's tough. What it buys you, however, is well, I think the VHS of it all, just kind of going back to what Jennifer was saying, like, I'm just always interested by how the aesthetics of like Super 8 film, even though that kind of existed before, that was really popular kind of before my time, it has a nostalgic kind of warmth as an aesthetic, whereas the aesthetics of early video are very alien. They make people look very hideous. They like, the contrast is so bad that like even the most beautiful person looks like washed out and pasty or strange on early video. It's just like inherently, it has a different effect on us kind of emotionally. So you have that opportunity to use that kind of visual aesthetic, which obviously you can't if you're making a normal movie. And then beyond that, there is something kind of wonderful about, being able to take people on enough of on the type of narrative ride that they can sort of pretend is real. You turn off your brain and be like, what if, and feel like I really am watching, police raiding a building, or, like a news broadcast that was lost, buried because, it uncovered the truth about Rathma. I actually really do enjoy that just as a viewer, when a found footage movie can kind of get me there and make me turn off my brain. And so, that's the positive about it. The negative, I would like to actually talk about more, but that was a pretty long answer anyway.
Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to add about found footage? I feel like we just got a lecture. I'm sorry.
I did a Blair Witch movie. Like I have a lot to say about it.
For me, I felt like I chose to do one that was single camera, which I think was probably a mistake. In the future, I would not do that. But yeah, it kind of meant that I had to do the thing which I always, frankly, felt like I was really bad at as a filmmaker, which is essentially a oneer, just like blocking a scene and doing it in a single take and figuring out a way to block and like create camera movement that still tells the story and also creates beats and creates scares. And that's really hard to do, but I enjoyed it. I don't know if it was successful, but I enjoyed it because it was a challenge, and it kind of felt like choreographing live theater or something at a certain point, and having to find very strategic cut points in there because we also had effects. And yeah, it's actually, in a way, I think it's harder than traditional filmmaking.
Yeah, and effects wise, like for you, Ryan and Jennifer, you both have some really good effects in both of your segments. Like, how much of a challenge was it to shoot around all of that? Like, just given the nature of what found footage is.
Yeah. That was like the fun of it, was like Simon was saying, of we want to make this feel like an incident that you're like watching play out in real time, but then you keep notching it up with like supernatural or otherworldly, or like things that you wouldn't see normally. So that was, to me, that was like the whole purpose of doing it, was like, okay, how can we make this feel like a documentary, in the case of my segment, where they're capturing, a creature on the loose, and we're actually witnessing that happen. And I think part of it too, to me, the fun of like kind of cracking the story and the code was definitely, like thinking about like who's the camera person and why are they still there when everything else is going down. And it's like, I think especially with found footage, it's like that's almost the first step to cracking the story, is like what's putting the camera there and building around that. And I just thought, these idiot macho militia dudes would definitely be walking into a barn where there's some kind of creature on the loose and like would have no problem doing it. that was fun to write.
Cool.
And I would say, this is the first found footage project that I've done, and I feel really particular about my cinematography. Like, I use a lot of close-ups. I use a lot of cross dissolves. I mean, in my previous work or my non-found footage films. And so it was a challenge, to make something that felt like, in terms of the cinematography, still felt like it was coming from me. And, you know, again, without giving too much away, at some point I knew that there needed to be a bludgeoning. And I thought about, you know, what would be the most interesting way to do that in this format. And yeah, well, I won't say much more, but you know, that's how my segment, you know, ends with a particular kind of bludgeoning, which in real life might not actually be cool. I think something else would break before the other thing breaks, but you know, we take liberties.
It was a great choice.
Yeah, without spoiling, that is a very on point bludgeoning.
Top 10 bludgeoning of the year.
I'll make that list. And so how about just like last question, like dead media? How do you all collect dead media, like VHS tapes?
Any VHS fans, watchers of VHS still?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Came up on it.
Yep.
I mean, I guess all media is kind of dead. So,
yeah, true.
You know, I mean, I continue to buy physical media in technically modern formats, but you know, but it feels like I'm already celebrating, you know, a forgotten thing for arbitrary reasons related to my own like hoarding instinct.
Are you very Blu-ray specific?
I probably have like about 1,000 Blu-rays.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I have like 3,000 records. I've been collecting, you know, vinyl since I was a little kid, so I have a lot of records. I actually have had to have record shelves made, and I have like two turntables in an apartment with as many bedrooms. You know, that's what I would rather spend my money on, I guess. I mean, you know. That's all success really affords you is the ability to ideally keep working, and then also to buy more of the crap that you kind of bought before. Oh, and I guess you don't have the constant terror of living in a society without a safety net whatsoever.
just 20 cc's of morose with every question.
There's that too. I guess I should always have that.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, and you know, navigating the tech issues too. That was very well done.
Okay. We're indie filmmakers. It's on the fly. We're ready to do it.
Right.
Thank you all so much.
VHS 94 is available on Shudder right now. Let us know what you thought of this movie over on Twitter at NOFS Podcast and in the Nightmare on Film Street Discord at nofspodcast.com/discord. If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us hear about it. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It's the easiest way to support the show, and it really, truly does help grow the horde and get the podcast in front of more fiends like yourself. Nightmare on Film Street, of course, is a free podcast, and you can support the show for $0 by recommending it to a friend or talking about it on social media to anybody that you think would enjoy it. But thank you again for listening, and until next time, stay creepy.
It appears you made it out alive, but we'll get you next time. Help us to grow the horde. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you subscribe. More terror can be found lurking on our website, nofspodcast.com. Until next time, stay creepy, fiends.